decade ago now, and I had a media trainer. Oh, which we are going to have some media training, by the way, actually, as well. We've got an external support from a lovely guy called Jeff, who's going to come and help us with that. But I had this media training from an actor who trained people to speak, and he really pushed me to work out how to say some of the lines. So I'd write my speech, and then he and I would refine it together. Um, and actually, I think that is such a good thing to do. That preparation, um, it just really helps. And I think taking those 1, 2, 3 minute intros and the end, that what you're going to end that hustings with, and just working on that, because that just gives you such a great deal of confidence about what you're saying. Yeah. So good. Trace is just saying about council tax questions. Obviously, things will change. They've just shifted the council tax in lots of areas. In fact, I think I got the email about our council tax today. So make sure you are hot on local, if you're running at that level, about what that means, because people will be feeling it. There are going to be national issues that come in that you will not necessarily be able to answer or be able to respond to. And it is okay to also say, that's not something that we'll be dealing with at this point. Different for devolved, local, regional elections, but that is also okay to be able to say that. People aren't necessarily always aware of it, but also always be, I can point you in the right direction for that information. I know where to find that information. That's also helpful. Come up to me after the hustings, and I'll happily point you in the direction of where to find that, or the person that you need to speak to. And then make sure you go and find them and give information to them. I would also take, obviously, your leaflets, your bundles. How are people getting in touch with you at the end? What are they saying? You can put them out on the seats at the start. It's always quite a nice way to do it if the event organisers are happy. If not, we've got a table, we can put the leaflets on so that everyone has those to walk away with. They're just really easy wins, and so that everyone can know and get in touch with you afterwards. Please tell me that all of you have a way, a means that people can contact you. It never ceases to amaze me that we still have some people who are running who do not have a candidate email or a way that they can be easily found. It's not this day and age. You just can't do it. Like you've got to be able to be found. Um, I'm just looking at the questions in the chat. Does anyone have any specific pointers that they wanted to kind of cover off or go through? I think I've covered everything that people have said. I know we've got a couple of independents in the room. It is harder as an independent. This is why you have to make a little bit more effort to ensure that people know that you exist. So that is always contacting the media, always ensuring that you're doing a Google. I would probably now have a Google alert, hustings, your local area, debate, residents associations. I mean, I would like to think that all of you have been in touch with your residents associations in your local area, and that you are offering to go and see them anyway, because that is a really easy win for you guys. It's a really nice way to get in front of people. If you aren't hearing about any hustings, you can put one on. It is absolutely fine for you to host and hold a hustings. That's a perfectly feasible thing to do. You need a hall, you need a space, you need to invite all of the other candidates. You can't look biased. You need to make sure that you have a chair who isn't related to a specific party, I would say preferably. And then you can hold it and do it that way. I've done that before, where as a party, no one was doing them. And it's such a great way to get people engaged. You can run it in a local primary school, and the parents are always interested in coming because it always matters, and that is always a great way to and space to hold a hustings. Partly the reason for like venue checking is to make sure it is accessible for you. I have heard horror stories of disabled candidates arriving and there is no step-free access for them to get up to the speaking platform, which is just not what you want at all. So that is a really key piece. Also, where the toilets are. I think that is yeah. and how you access those as well. But hopefully, the event organisers will have thought through that. I wouldn't assume that they had, though, because often they can be quite nervous and may well not have done. Right, I'm just going to go back to my notes. So, just in terms of the kind of what you're thinking about when you present at a hustings, you're presenting yourself as the candidate who wants the job of representing those people. So that is the kind of premise for the evening, and this is your opportunity to put all of the things that you care about deeply and for them to see that to them. I think depending on who and how you deal with doubts, this is a moment to set them aside and to think about how capable you are. And I think there is a big piece of, because you are here already, you have put yourself forward, you have prepared to do this, you are qualified to stand, and it is now just about convincing people that that is the case. And it's to always come back to that you are completely capable, that you have a good reason why you're standing, that what you're bringing is that experience to the table, and that is going to be why these people should employ you to represent them. I think people often slightly forget about the fact you are literally applying for a job, and this is like a live interview. So prepare for it as you would do that. Yeah, the hard of hearing piece. So it depends on the location. Some places will and should have all of the hearing sound loops, but some don't. If a hearing problem is an issue, I would suggest to the event organisers, have they got a roving mic? They're like 10 quid now in Argos. A roving mic makes all of the people asking the questions, it makes it so much easier so that you can hear them properly. They must have somebody in the room who will take that roving mic around. I mean, I don't want to teach the event organizers to suck eggs, but like that is the kind of thing that they should be putting in place. You can also helpfully suggest that in your email when you're asking them and checking in of exactly the format of the evening. I just want to check you're going to have a roving mic. Hearing is not great. This particular venue is particularly echoey, and they usually are echoey large spaces which don't have the best. So it is absolutely fine to push back and say that roving mics are necessary, and if it's big enough, all of the people on the stage should have a mic too, or there should be a shareable mic amongst those speaking at the hustings. There is something that's quite good about having a mic that you're sharing, because actually the pause as you pass the mic over gives you a little bit of time and space to refocus your energies. In a high school is great. I have been to a number of hustings in older pupils, and actually I've been to ones where it's been the pupils have come with family. I've been to one where it's just pupils, and I've been to others where it's more about local community. So, but I think those are all very valid, and I think often the schools are really keen to engage with candidates. And to have them there, because I think they find it a really good experience, really useful. As I have been to, have not been live streamed. I'd expect they probably aren't for the whole. You're right. The issue is people will now have their mobile phones. You can ask that the event set the scene. So as Katie always does set our scene so perfectly, is, we have a space, it's cross-party, we bring people together. That really matters to us. We think it's really important to have that inclusion, that more in common aspect, and not dissimilar to those in the event organizers. You can say, I really feel, I would feel very uncomfortable if somebody was filming with their phone. Can we make sure that we set the scene at the beginning? No phones for live recording. That would make me feel very comfortable, and it's perfectly okay to say that. It's always there can be a bit of a balance. Some people will try and push that, some people won't. It really depends on how sort of, and I suspect the people who might abuse that would actually be members from different parties. who are filming. And I have seen that. And that you can ask them, but you have to slightly balance the request with sort of not looking too difficult. I'm trying to think of the right way to actually say that. Yes, churches do often have sound loops, thank you, which does make a big difference. But I do think the roving mic is a really particularly useful piece for any hustings. Okay, those are all of my, I think, my top tips. And I've realized I haven't got the clothing one in there, but we will add that in, and we will then get that round to everybody. And that gives us about 20 minutes for questions before we then move on to just talking about what's coming up next in these clinics. So yeah, I'm going to open the floor. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to say is we have practical tips on our YouTube channel from previous clinics, all about public speaking. So Patricia, who works with us, she's a board member and she coaches people in how to speak. She runs a TEDx. She's done this for a long time. She's very good at this. Oh, great. We'll be able to help you with some, like just how do I think about public speaking? What do I do? So we have all of that exists on our YouTube. I'm watching the YouTube vids and they're great. Oh, perfect. Okay. We have also been approached by a couple of people asking about helping to write. So again, if you wanted some support in writing some of the things that you're doing, and writing that 1, 2, 3 minute intro, just ping us, come to an Ask Her session, and we can help you do that. And if you wanted, I'm sure Patricia would also be available to help and give a couple of slots to people, because it really can make a big difference, partly in building your confidence, but also just making sure that you've tweaked your lines. I always tell this story because this is so amazing to me. We had this brilliant candidate in 24 who was running for the general election. She said, I just find the hustling so hard because I don't really know what I've done, and I feel like I care so much, but I don't know how to frame it all and talk about it. And I said, oh, well, let's just chat about you, and we'll just let me hear about you. And she was running in a rural seat, which matters for this. And she said, oh, well, yeah, I studied economics at university. And I said, oh, that's really interesting and quite unusual. And she was running for the Greens, who are not, I would suggest, naturally known as the party of economists. So I said, that's quite a useful piece, because I think people will think that's an interesting experience and values and thoughts to bring to it. She then said, oh, I married a farmer. And I said, oh, so you married into a farming family, so you really understand rural issues. She was like, oh, yes, yeah, I suppose I do. And I was like, well, that's definitely going in your 60-second opener. And then she said, and then I trained, and I in looking at sort of the biology and the evolution of how plants work, and then I use some of that to then in my art. And I've actually I've displayed art at the Royal Academy, and I was like, oh my, this woman is just astoundingly incredible, and also brought up a family, and it's just so interesting that she hadn't perceived. And I think we all have this habit, or certainly I do, of not necessarily seeing all of our strengths and how they add. So her understanding of biodiversity and her ability to put that in art, I think farmers understand about biodiversity. So I suppose my point is that, like, she was bringing in these different skills that really mattered for the issues at hand. And it's about how you talk about that. And all of this practice, by the way, I want you all to be using in the future when you go on to other jobs. If you don't make it at this election, or you use it for your next election, I think it's really important that these are all skills that you're adding. If you have been to a hustings, you have been in a challenging environment and you have answered questions, and that is a really learnt skill that is really helpful for future roles. How do you deal with aggressive questions that are uncomfortable and controversial? I definitely plan around some of these questions. So depending on who you're standing with and for, there are going to be questions potentially on issues that you are not actually probably going to have any say in. So I think things like Palestine, that is a complex area. I would not go there. And I would say that is not something that in my role I'm going to be able to have any influence on. That's and I really would try and shut some of this down. If you really want to get into it, that's a choice, but it's there's going to be people who feel uncomfortable with that. But I would think very carefully about whether you're willing to go into certain conversations. Um, Everyone dislikes Trump. That's an easy win. So I wouldn't have any problem saying you don't like him very much. I think his polling in the UK, 87% of people dislike him. You're I mean, obviously, at one of the hustings, there's bound to be some person who thinks he's amazing, but they are very few and far between. So that's not a controversial one that you need to avoid. You can definitely go there. There's a really good session that Patricia did a few weeks ago about specifically about aggressive questions. If you don't like the way the question is framed, it is also okay to say, I think that's probably unnecessarily put. I think that's a little uncomfortable for me, but I understand what you're trying to get at, and this is what I would say to that. And it is okay to push back a little bit. I think it's absolutely fine for people to see that strength of character and that you are not going to take rude, uncomfortable, abusive people. And if you find that it is a deeply inappropriate question, you turn to the chair and you say, that is not an appropriate question. Please, could you ensure that that is shut down? Like that is absolutely fine. And the chair should be on that. Chairs are can be very varied in their capacity and abilities, and some will be better than others, and some will be more experienced. It's not an easy role, but they should be on it. And if they're not, it's perfectly okay for you to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't think that's an appropriate question, and I'm really uncomfortable talking about it, and that's fine. And the person who is they then need to deal with them. That chair needs to deal with that. And if you felt that you wanted to say that prior to the event starting, that's also quite a good sort of framing. If there's certain things that you don't feel are appropriate or that you want to, or just to suggest that if a question becomes aggressive and nasty, that you would like the chair to handle it and just explain that before in advance. Um, So Patricia's book, She Said, is the one that people are saying is really helpful. And somebody listened to it on Spotify after a clinic last year and would definitely recommend. Yeah, we've heard a few people who said that. Look at the faces when others are asking questions to how the people react. Yeah, and I mean, I have stood in areas where I've had quite a lot of hostility because new parties cutting through can often make others feel uncomfortable and change. Often the worst excesses were actually from party members, and they could sometimes make inappropriate comments or noises. Again, the chair should be cutting in there and stopping that. And if they are not, chair, would you mind controlling the room? Chair, would you mind making a point around this noise? It's completely okay to do that. So Mel had an issue coming up that was really uncomfortable because it concerned a group of people who weren't represented in the room. I said that a thing I really believe in is nothing about us without us. So I wouldn't express any opinion. That's fine, as long as you explained why you meant that and what that meant to you. And I think that's a lot of it is like it's perfectly okay to feel like that way. Just making sure that other people understand why, because it's that piece that is, and I totally get it. If nobody was there from that community, it does feel inappropriate to be talking about them or to them and not with them. Um, so yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So locally, subjects like Palestine are transferred to things like divestment through pensions, etc. And how would you approach that? Um, Pensions are a myriad and indescribably complex area. It depends on where the pensions are based and what they're and who they are. So you might need a little bit more clarity about the person who's asking that question, because if their pension is not affected, yeah. I mean, we've there are a number of issues within this volatile world that we are now having to deal with in a way that we didn't. Equity markets have had a terrible time. Pension funds are struggling as a consequence. It all creates issues. Um, I don't think that you can answer a divestment through pensions question at a hustings in a really laudable way. So I think you might have to say something along the lines of, I think that's a really interesting, incredibly complex question. I totally sympathize. This is a very volatile world we are now currently navigating, very difficult to navigate. I'm very happy to go into more detail around this, but this is probably not the right environment for an answer to that type of detailed question. And that might make you feel, I suppose what I'm trying to say is I don't want the other person to feel that you're not taking this seriously. It's a very serious issue. It has huge implications. I'm not convinced that lots of people understand how important the pensions and how that matters for capital markets and all of those sorts of things that keep us in our houses. But yeah, I think that is probably the right piece. And lots of those decisions should be made by those whose funds are run by the pensions funds. So it shouldn't be you telling necessarily somebody. It should potentially be those who have the pensions deciding for themselves where they invest their pensions are invested. But yeah, that's an interesting question. I didn't expect that one tonight. Okay, we have all of that in Welsh. So if anyone would like it, we can also send you that in Welsh, which I'm very excited about. And if anyone had any other questions about doing anything. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Bill. Do just let me know now. You can, yeah, I'm just trying to think about anything else that's come up.